just briefly, the SHEET method of investigating, this is for Jewel, it stands for science, history, eyewitnesses, and the ET is actually cubed at this point, and you'll see that in our book. Just briefly, the science part is we strongly believe that you have to go in with scientific instruments and capture and measure with a scientific method to show that there is actually paranormal activity at the location. You can't get past the scientific method. You've got to capture scientific evidence. That's important. The history is extremely important because the history supports the science. You've got to go in and you've got to study the history of the location and find out what happened. And then you want to, so you have a storyline. You kind of have an idea of what's going on. And then you can match it up with your results. You're getting these scientific results. Does that square up with what historically occurred at the location and what you expect? Eyewitnesses is the same thing. You interview eyewitnesses who've had experiences there to see if their experiences are actually going back to the historical events and they're matching up and everything makes sense. That's important. And then you get into the ET, and that is emotional. It started out as environmental triggering, and we're still going to do that. We're going to do that even a lot more in Season 2 and a lot in Seasons 3 and 4. Environmental triggering is we set up the environment at the location. You go in with a plethora of trigger objects. You go in wearing the period dress. You play the music that they listen to at that time period, and you create an entire environment as much as you can that's inviting to that spirit. When you go into a location, and if you're thinking only as a scientist, and you go in there and you're just being analytical, it'd be like a person coming into your living room and sticking you probes all over your body, and they're just taking scientific tests, and they don't even introduce themselves to you. Whereas you want to go in there, introduce yourself, you want to sit down, have a cup of coffee, hypothetically, with the spirit, and get to know them as a person and understand that they have emotions and feelings and so forth the same as we do. And so you want to set up an environment that they're familiar with. Not a scientific laboratory, but an actual environment that they, for example, if you're in the Old West, you go in dressed as a cowboy, you go in with the six-shooters and so forth, so they can relate to you. Okay, that's the environmental portion. And then the emotional triggering is where you identify with their emotions. You try to feel those emotions and actually have some of those emotions felt in yourself and reenact those. And through your emotion, you can attract activity. And finally, the rest of the other part of the ET, the reason we call it cubed now, is it stands for evangelism triggering, and that's covered more in more detail in our book. It's called Ghost Evangelism or Evangelism Triggering, and I'm going to leave that one for the book because I explain it in detail. I don't want to give too much away. I don't want to get our publisher upset with us. So we'll leave that one alone. But just suffice to say, evangelism, basically you are, just like it says, you're evangelizing the spirit. You see a lot of that. Actually, you see that a lot. We discovered it. It was an emotional thing that occurred, that happened to us. It was thrust upon us, basically. We discovered it accidentally at Hotel Mead, and you see a lot of it occur at Bryan Center. So when you get a chance to watch the Bryan Center episode, you'll see a lot of evangelism triggering in that location. So, and that's. I hope that wasn't very brief, but there it is.
Thank you.
You're welcome.